Well, kids, it's that time of year again. It's time to release a video so that I can strategically get the YouTube algorithm to make it more popular so more people can yell at me on the internet. So, I've had this video on the back burner for a long time. And I know if I don't make this video soon, my opinion is going to be different because season 3 will be out. You see, I originally had a plan to make this video be a lot more negative. It was going to be called like, Why Mando Bad or something like that. I also wanted to spend a lot of time discussing why it's stupid that the Star Wars fan base like these instead of liking, the sequels. But the sequels are pretty bad too, so it doesn't even matter. But you know what? Something happened to me last year that kind of changed me. It changed the whole way I watch TV and movies. I watched the entire Halo TV show. I watched every episode. And this show broke me. This show bad, okay? So you know what? I don't have it in me anymore to hate on the Baby Yoda show. Can't do it. I used to dislike this show a lot more, but at the end of the day, it's really not that bad. There are a lot worse Star Wars shows out there, and there are a lot worse just TV shows in general. That being said, the show still isn't perfect, and now that Andor is out, I think a lot more people are realizing how much potential a Star Wars TV show holds. And you don't hear as many people claiming that the Mando is as perfect as it was initially received when it first came out. As you can probably imagine, I have a lot to say about this show, and I hope that by the end of this, we can all agree that both the good things I talk about and the bad things can get continuously improved as the show goes on. Before I can complain about this show though, which I assume is what you're looking forward to, I want to talk about the good stuff. And unfortunately, there is a lot of good stuff in this show. This, by definition, is a true TV show. And with that, I have found that it needs to be watched in a particular way. Certain types of media need to be watched in a certain way. If you're watching Dune on your cell phone without headphones on, you're watching it the wrong way. If you're watching Dune without reading the book, you're watching it the wrong way. If you're watching the Godzilla anime, turn it off. No one should have to watch that. And like those other shows, The Mandalorian is another show that needs to be watched in a certain way. This show is meant to be watched sitting on the couch once a week, surrounded by friends and family. That is the ideal way to watch this show. It's not meant to be watched by college sophomores on their phone before class starts. The majority of the fun of this show is being able to watch it with people. You don't have to be up to date with the episodes. You're not going to miss much if you skip one. You don't have to know Star Wars lore to get it. It's just an easy watch that can, for the most part, be enjoyed by anyone. I know everyone on the internet has already said this, but I legitimately have friends who don't like Star Wars that still watch this show. It's true. Those people exist. If you think The Mandalorian is boring and that it sucks, I urge you to try to watch it in this manner. And if you think The Mandalorian is the second coming of Jesus Christ, I think you should try to watch it alone, on your own, and see if you still feel the same way. Chances are you'll probably get bored and you'll stop watching it before it's finished. But we'll talk a little bit about that later. The music is really good, which is weird. It's good in a weird way. It's kind of so bad it's good. Like, it's quirky, and it reminds me of like the quirky soundtracks of Sergio. It's weird, but it helps distinguish itself and make itself different than other Star Wars soundtracks. My favorite track is the little like jingle that it does around Grogu. Like the din, 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 din. I like that one.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
The other thing I have to mention is the volume. I want to make it clear this is really cool. The fact that this show doesn't use any green screen is amazing. Later in this video, I'm going to say a lot of mean things about the show, but I want you to know right now, I'm willing to forgive all of them because of how cool the volume is. But it's not just tech that makes the show cool. This is where I need to talk about the creators of this show, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. They are the perfect duo to use this technology. When I heard Jon Favreau was making another space western, I lost all hope. But surprise, he actually does a decent job with this show. Like green screen, if you don't understand how to use it, it looks like garbage. And if you've seen the Obi-Wan show, you know that sometimes the volume looks like trash. The show is ugly. I don't like it. Jon Favreau has proven in the past that he knows how to work with extensive and advanced CGI tech. And Dave Filoni's previous experience in the cartoon industry adds for this show looking really good. What's unique about this show is that they treat it like a cartoon, which is genius because when you consider how much of this show is computer drawn, yeah, this is a cartoon. The show uses a lot more storyboards than typical TV shows, and because of that, you get an almost comic book-like feel, where almost every shot feels like it's a panel. It's a beautiful show, and anyone who disagrees is James Cameron, probably, because he's jealous. Okay, I've been nice long enough, let's get to the funny stuff.
Daddy? Do I look?
Okay, The Mandalorian is Star Wars on safe mode, okay? I'm putting the hammer down. I like Star Wars a lot. I watch the movies, I watch the cartoons, I play the video games, I read the books, I read the comics. I waste a lot of time and money on this property. So I think I'm in a good enough position where I can say when Star Wars is playing it too safe. Every single decision in this show feels like it had to be approved by some businessman in order to please the most amount of people. This show takes zero risks. Season 2, I guess, is a bit more daring, but it's hard to enjoy because every episode feels like a commercial trying to set up 1,000 Disney Plus shows. For me, Season 1 feels bogged down because so much of it feels like it's trying not to upset the angry Star Wars fans on YouTube. Oh, we can't let anyone see the Mandalorian's ethnicity. That might offend people for having it being too woke or not woke enough. Make sure every planet looks like Tatooine. People like Tatooine. Oh, you can put a woman in it, but don't let her do too much. We don't want her to be a Mary Sue. Also, don't put gay people in Star Wars. Actually, don't put straight people in Star Wars either. Yeah, Boba Fett, he has to be friend-zoned by this hot Asian girl that he lives with. Oh, you want an ATSD? Okay, but only if it's on a forest planet, because it would be weird if they were on a planet that didn't look like Episode 6. Oh, you want to reference something? Okay, you can reference the holiday special, because people know what that is. Don't reference something cool, like Kyle Katarn, because Clone Wars fans don't know who that is. Make sure the Mandalorian, he fights a big Triceratops, because in Episode 2, Jango Fett fought a big Triceratops. Also, just be Indiana Jones. Star Wars fans love thinking that Indiana Jones and Star Wars are the same property for some reason. Yeah, these all sound like stupid nitpicks, but it really does have both a negative effect on this show and honestly on the other shows that have followed it. Right from the beginning, you are smacked in the face with the reality that this is clearly supposed to be a Boba Fett story. So hang on. Back in 2016, there were rumors that Disney was going to make both a Boba Fett and an Obi-Wan movie. We know for a fact the Obi-Wan movie was going to happen, and I think it's pretty safe to say that at some point Disney came to Lucasfilm and said, hey, we need you to make something for our streaming service. Well, what do you got? They went and repurposed the Boba Fett movie into this TV show. If Disney wasn't planning on saving Boba Fett for something, I'm pretty sure he would have shown up in the Han Solo movie. You know, it really felt like they were trying to save him for something. Or, you know, you can just look at the freaking concept art where the Mandalorian is painted to be Boba Fett. However, you gotta keep in mind that around this time The Last Jedi came out and everybody lost their minds.
That's really an interesting color. I didn't know it was red.
I honestly think the negative reception of The Last Jedi and Solo scared Disney away from making this a Boba Fett show. People hated Luke in The Last Jedi, people hated Solo in Solo, so why wouldn't they hate Boba Fett in a Boba Fett TV show? So what was their solution? Yeah, just freaking rename all the characters. Oh, you want to see 4LOM? Sorry, you can't. Here's a dude that looks exactly like 4LOM. Oh, you want to see IG-88? Here, have this guy that looks exactly the same as him, but just change the last numbers. Oh, you want to see Boba Fett? Here, have a dude who looks exactly like him, has the same arsenal, same job, same personality, same basically everything. Look, I'm not kidding. When this show came out, I thought it was building up to the fact that there was going to be a reveal that Mando was Boba Fett back from the Sarlacc. But no, he's named this. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Again, I know what y'all are thinking. I'm making a bigger deal than it's worth for all of this. But by making these copy and paste characters, you kind of neglect the original ones. You can't put IG-88 in something because he's too much like IG-11. People are super upset about the Boba Fett TV show because Boba Fett doesn't really act like Boba. He's way too nice. Yes, I know that in the expanded universe, Boba learned to forgive Han and the Jedi and, you know, become more of a hero. But that was after way more character stuff had happened to him. The only reason why he acts like this is because they legitimately can't make a Boba Fett story because it would feel too much like The Mandalorian.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
No. See? That's not right. This isn't the way things are supposed to be. They got all confused somehow.
Now Boba Fett, one of the most iconic Star Wars characters, is super lame. Like, that sucks. That's not respecting your IP. Imagine how much more emotional the ending of season 1 would have been if instead of Mando, it was Boba Fett who learned that the little green dude he has spent the last week protecting is a Jedi. You know, the people that killed his dad. You know, it would have been cool to see him have to choose between following the Mandalorian and his own gut instincts of protecting the young versus, you know, his personal and angry past. That would have been such a cool Boba Fett story, but we didn't get it. And look, it's not just that the show has weird rules about using characters. The show is also just a little too formulaic. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a formulaic show, but I think if the show tried a little harder to stray away from the typical episode routine, the experience could be a lot better. There's two things I think this show lacks in: mystery and tension. These are both things that I feel like Star Wars has always kind of been rooted in. Every episode ends the way you expect it to. Mandalorian gets a job done on some planet for someone, he makes a new friend, or he defeats a new enemy. The Mandalorian is the main character, so he's just invincible. We know he can't die. Roe v. Wade got shut down, so we know Baby Yoda is safe. Very rarely is the conflict solved in a creative way. Typically, it just ends with Mando shooting faceless people in a hallway. It's boring. Stormtroopers only exist in this show to get shot. Once you see one show up, you know he's gonna die soon. You can only have stormtroopers getting shot in the same gray hallway so much before it gets old. This leads to the Empire, the most powerful force in the galaxy, feeling super weak. The few times there is any tension in the show, it feels super forced.
No living thing has seen me without my helmet since I swore the creed. I am not a living thing.
Oh my god! Wow!
This show seriously suffers from a little thing I like to call the Dragon Ball Z inconsistent power level issue. Depending on how the writers are feeling, Mando can feel way too weak or way too OP. Sometimes he can go toe-to-toe with Death Troopers, and other times he gets his butt kicked by Jawas. Dude, I could take on a Jawa. Apparently the Stormtroopers killed all the Mandalorians off-screen in Season 1, except for this lady, who isn't even a soldier. And apparently she can take on like 20 Stormtroopers just using medieval weapons. Wow, the Mandalorians must be trash. The finale of Season 2 especially feels whack. So Mando and Grogu are trapped in a room with Charlie's Angels, and we're supposed to think that they're gonna be killed by a squad of Death Troopers, but like, I'm pretty sure they could take them on. Like, Mando has a lightsaber and Beskar armor. This whole thing feels kind of silly, right? I know this episode made a bunch of grown-ass men cry, but all I felt was boredom. The finales of these shows are both pretty weak. Season's 1 finale is probably the weakest episode in the whole show, and I think part of the reason why is because they don't really feel like finales. There's nothing to get too excited about. They seem the same as any other episode. Mando goes to a place, shoots people in a hallway, the end. The show doesn't really feel like it's building up to anything either. There isn't anything to get excited about, there's no mystery we want to see resolved. The big revelation that happens at the end of Season 1 was that Baby Yoda is a Jedi. And like, yeah, we all know that. Good job. At the end of Season 2, Mofo Gideon says that he was able to get what he needed from Baby Yoda.
I've already got what I want from him.
His whole plan was a success. I'm sorry, what plan? This might actually scare me if I knew what they wanted Baby Yoda for. Also, weren't they like gonna kill him? Wasn't that why he had to save him in Season 1? Whatever extraction process they were trying to do to Baby Yoda didn't seem that bad. You know, I feel like if you guys had just talked this stuff out in Season 1, they could have saved a lot of time. Maybe the show is building up to the fact that the Empire wants to use Grogu's blood to make like a Force-sensitive droid or an Emperor clone or something, but it's so rarely brought up or mentioned, we the viewers don't really have any anticipation for it. No one's talking about fan theories about what the Empire is doing in Mando. I'm not saying this show needs to be full of teases or mystery boxes, I just want a better idea of where it's heading. And I feel like the only reason they don't do that is because some businessman told the directors they couldn't because it might confuse people who missed an episode. What I'm trying to say is that The Mandalorian needs to focus a little bit more on its overarching plot. Not a ton, but it would be nice if they could do a bit more. It would give us a better understanding of the urgency of the situation. So like when stuff like Baby Yoda getting kidnapped, you know, it would mean a lot more. The way it stands right now is kidnapping isn't that big of a deal. I think I was more upset when Mando's ship got blown up. Maybe I'm just on crack, but I feel like it wouldn't take that much to make this show more interesting. And again, I know these all sounded like stupid nitpicks, but I completely believe the fact that this show was so beloved when was released, and the reason why the Boba Fett and Obi-Wan shows feel so weak is because the studio wanted to make them into The Mandalorian. And when you take away the spectacle and the action of The Mandalorian, you're left with a very empty and boring show. And now I need to talk about the number one thing I can't stand about this show, the characters. Believe it or not, this show really only has 3 characters. Any character can basically be fit into these categories. Number 1, the cool action figure. Number 2, the cute alien Guga. And number 3, a cameo. The generic action figure character trope is a term I probably didn't invent, but it's what I like to call characters in action/adventure series, whose main features are their appearance and the way they fight. Mace Windu is a good example of this. Make no mistake, every Star Wars fan loves Mace Windu. He is the distilled essence of cool. But when you look past the fact that he's played by Sam Jackson and he has a purple lightsaber, he actually kind of sucks. He's super boring and whiny. He's just like a jerk for no reason. Yes, in expanded material, he's more fleshed out. And if you're someone who only likes Mace Windu because of a comic or a book you read, my hat's off to you. But most people just like him because he looks cool and he beats up a lot of people. And basically, all of the main characters in this show are like that. They're just here to look cool and shoot people. Okay, character number 1, Mando. Mando is boring. I have a hard time enjoying this dude, not because he's just a blatant copy of Boba Fett, but also because this dude is an emotionless, lifeless boat hole. The fact that he can't take off his helmet is stupid. And it's hard to watch a character when you have no idea how he's reacting to stuff.
Help me kill it, I'll give you the armor.
People are mad at the Halo show because Jimmy Rings takes off his helmet, but I was actually kind of relieved. For a show like Halo to work, you need to see Chief's face so we can know what's going through his head. A big part of the show is Chief trying to figure himself out. You can't really do that when your face doesn't move. Make no mistake, the show still sucks, but it's not because you see his face. Also, what is up with him not being able to take off his helmet? I know Boba Fett didn't like taking off his helmet in the EU because he didn't want people to know he was a clone, but I don't remember a single piece of Star Wars media where if you took off your helmet, it meant you were no longer a Mandalorian. In the Clone Wars, Jon Favreau plays as a Mandalorian that took off his helmet all the time. I'm sorry, Jon. Is it too much for me to ask you to watch the cartoon that you are in? See, this is why you don't let Dave Filoni write stuff. He's not exactly up to date with lore. The cult that Mando is part of is called the Children of the Watch. Now, for a long time in both Legends and canon, the Mandalorian Death Watch was meant to be some type of, group of Mandalorian separatists who wanted to reinstate their extremist views. The Children of the Watch, apparently, is a separatist group of that separatist group that wanted to be more extreme than the extremist.
What?
I know 100 of you have already written how Mando is a great character because he's an homage to Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. No, you guys didn't put that? Oh. Anyways, first of all, I know. George Lucas said the same thing about Boba Fett, just throwing that out there. But if you look a little closer, there's a reason why this one works and this one doesn't. The first movie in the Dollars trilogy is called A Fistful of Dollars. It introduces the Man with No Name who shows up to a poor little town, kills all the bad guys, and leaves. Despite it having a handful of really cool moments,
Get 3 coffins ready.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
it's kind of boring. Especially when you compare it to the other 2 entries in the series. And I think the reason why is that Clint Eastwood doesn't have a sidekick in this movie. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the 3rd installment, and it is way easier to enjoy because Clint Eastwood spends the whole time hanging out with Tuco, the comic relief character. The quiet, brood, nameless character isn't that fun unless he's got someone to bounce off. Another example of this is Christopher Nolan's Tenet. The main character has no name and basically no personality, but nobody cares because he's teamed up with super charismatic Robert Battenbat. I honestly think they should have kept IG-11 around for the whole show. It would have really elevated Mando's character. The shootout they have in the first episode is surprisingly one of the best, and part of the reason why is because it's not just, wow, I wonder how Mando will shoot the bad guys. It's, hey, how will Mando deal with the bad guys while simultaneously making sure this robot doesn't blow him up? Compare this to the boring fight in the Bo Katan episode. Yeah, most of you forgot this was in the show. This is boring. The other thing that Clint Eastwood's character has above Mando is the fact that a big reason why the Dollar Trilogy works is that it's more about the world than it is the characters. The Dollars Trilogy is an inversion of the Wild West. Before these movies came out, the West was portrayed as a clean and fun place full of noble heroes and righteousness. Sergio Leone said, yeah, no, screw that. I'm gonna make something cool and violent that's, I don't know, probably more realistic?
No! Angeline!
Yeah, this is probably more realistic. The world of the Dollars Trilogy has more in common with Mad Max than it does other westerns. And the typical heroic sheriff, he's not a character in these movies. Clint Eastwood is framed as the protagonist, but really he's just as cruel and vile as the villains in these. Now, for Mando's case, you kinda can't make it about the world. Unfortunately, the inversion of a sci-fi world was already done by George Lucas in the 70s, a little known piece of lost media called Star Wars. But what this show could have done was made Mando a more neutral gray character than a straight up good guy. After the sequels, I think we all just wanted to see a Star Wars character that was different. But sadly, that's not what we get. The Mandalorian is just good versus evil, just like the originals. It's still black and white, which, I don't know, maybe that's not so much a complaint as it is a missed opportunity. It's just weird they didn't go on that route. Probably because Disney told them it was too risky. Look, I'd love to talk about old westerns for the rest of this video, but I got a few more characters to roast. Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon is probably the weakest Star Wars villain since maybe Count Dooku. He's literally just a bad guy. See, this show does this genius little thing where instead of actually letting us see him, do something evil, they just tell us how bad he is. I feel so bad for making fun of Darth Maul in those Clone Wars videos, because he has way more depth than this dude. Like, it is impossible to take this dude seriously. The most intimidating thing about him is that he's played by a villain of a much better show. No, not that one. No, keep going. Yeah, that's the one. Look, I want to rant more about this character, but there's nothing to him. He's barely in the show, and when he is, he just sits around and talks about how bad he is. It's lame. Cara Dune.
Mrs. Cara Dune. She was a shock trooper.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Cara Dune is probably the epitome of the action figure trope I spoke of. All she does is shoot stuff and talk about how she likes to shoot stuff. When Star Wars fans said they wanted a real strong female character, I guess they meant they wanted a girl who can bench 100 billion pounds. Like, I'm sorry, okay? I try to be level-headed, but I get a little upset when people say that Gun Lady is what Rey should have been. Dude, Gun Lady is not a character. You don't have to like Rey, but I think we can all admit she's still a written character.
Well, why are you calling me? I'm Rey.
She has struggles and fears, and I didn't even have to Google her name to write this video. Also, her line delivery is hilariously bad.
Stop the boat. Hey, droid! I said stop the boat. Hey, I'm talking to you. I said stop.
I know a lot of people are sad that her show got canceled, but if you ask me, it's a tender mercy. Also, Sniper Lady, that's the exact same character as Gun Lady. Cobb Vanth is probably better than Sniper Lady, but I don't know, he's just a guy. Carl Weathers is cool, because I like Carl Weathers, but again, it's a stretch to call him much of a character, even if he does technically get sort of an arc. You see what I mean about most of the people in the show feeling like action figures? They aren't unlikable, but there isn't really anything to them that you can really hold on to. Alright, I'm gonna move on to the second category of characters, aka Baby Yoda, because, I don't know, I don't need to talk about the other guys. Okay, I can't believe I'm actually gonna rant about this, but I really do not like Baby Yoda. And it's simply because I feel like he has nothing to do. This isn't as big a problem in Season 1, but in Season 2, it's very clear the writers just have no idea. Most of Season 2, Grogu is either captured by the Empire, or Mando drops him off to get babysat at the beginning of the episode. He has very little purpose being in this show a lot of the time. In a lot of ways, I feel like Grogu is kind of holding the show back. He is the staple character for this show. There's no moving past the Baby Yoda arc. This show will always be about Mando trying to protect Baby Yoda, and because of that, I feel like it'll be hard for the Mando to get involved in any larger conflict. I feel like this show could go in new and more exciting directions if Baby Yoda had just stayed with Luke. And as cringe as the Book of Boba Fett was, at least they actually gave Grogu something to do. That's more than he got in both seasons of Mando. Even though, I'm sorry, this is just hilarious. I can't not laugh at this. This is just, okay, who thought this looked cool? Look, I'm not opposed to Baby Yoda. I'm not a monster. I just wish he was incorporated into the story in better ways. And I feel like the writing team is kind of in trouble because they can't really do anything with the character. And therefore his inclusion is just going to feel forced and awkward for the rest of the show. Really, we'll just have to wait and see how he is in Season 3. Okay, we're almost done. Ready to talk about the last group of characters, the cameos. So this group includes Boba Fett, Bo Katan, Ahsoka, and Luke Skywalker. Now, my problem with these characters isn't that they're in the show. It's just that if you know nothing about Boba Fett, Bo Katan, Ahsoka, or Luke Skywalker, and you watch the show, by the end of the show, you will still not know anything about Boba Fett, Bo Katan, Ahsoka, or Luke. I know a lot of people want this show to be totally disconnected from other Star Wars media, and though I respect that, I disagree. As a huge nerd, it is super cool seeing tons of characters from across the universe appear on screen. However, and again as a huge nerd, part of seeing these characters on screen means I want to see them faithfully adapted. And now it's time to talk about the legend of Dave Filoni.
You become more dangerous, fall to wickedness, or in the face of fear, turn to good.
I'm certain the story could continue at some point.
It'd have been nicer if you promoted somebody else's character, but you chose your own, Anakin. Why? It'd have been nicer if you promoted somebody else's character, but you promoted somebody else's character, but somebody else's character, somebody else's character, somebody else's character, somebody else's character, but you chose your own, Anakin. Why?
Dave Filoni does not care about the OG source material. A lot of people like Dave Filoni because he made the lame Clone Wars. But what a lot of people don't know is that the Clone Wars TV show is based off the original TV show and off a bunch of comics. Believe it or not, characters like Captain Rex, Asajj Ventress, and Quinlan Vos weren't actually made up for this show. They were all taken from comics. And if you've read any of those comics, you know that in the animated show they act a little bit different. It's because you didn't read the comics. And this doesn't just expand to, comic original characters. It goes for other characters too. Aayla Secura was super fleshed out in the comics. In the cartoon, she is French. In the comics, Aurra Sing is an ex-Jedi with a lightsaber. In the cartoon, she's just a lady. Believe it or not, Dirge was originally supposed to be in the Clone Wars cartoon, but they decided to swap him out with Cad Bane simply because Dave Filoni didn't know anything about Dirge. There's not much to him. It's just John Carpenter's The Thing mixed with the Doomslayer. He also likes adding really weird stuff to the lore of Star Wars. For instance, in the Clone Wars, it is stated that Jango Fett wasn't actually a Mandalorian.
I recently encountered a man who wore Mandalorian armor. Jango Fett.
Jango Fett was a common bounty hunter. How he acquired that armor is beyond me.
No? I knew Jango Fett was a Mandalorian since I was 8 years old. Mandalorians were made up to explain who Boba Fett was. Saying Boba Fett isn't a Mandalorian is just neglectful and ruins a lot of the established lore. I know that 2,000 Clone Wars fans have written in the comments right now how in-universe this dude is supposed to be lying. That's only because they retconned him back to being a Mandalorian. For a while, the Fetts not being Mandalorians was canon. I like how in the episode that introduces Boba Fett, he says he's a Mandalorian. Then a few episodes later, when Dave Filoni is directing, he says that he isn't.
This is my father, Jango Fett.
Your father was a foundling.
Yes. He even fought in the Mandalorian civil wars.
Then that armor belongs to you.
You are not a Mandalorian.
Never said I was.
It's just so weird. And it's especially weird in Ahsoka's place. Now, I like Ahsoka, but she's kinda overstayed her welcome. I don't have an issue with her surviving the Clone Wars, but at the end of Rebels, they use time travel to go back in time to save Ahsoka. This is bad fan fiction. But hey, that show takes place, a few years before Episode 4, so maybe something happened to her off screen to explain why she wasn't in the Tridge. Oh wait, nope, she is still alive doing Jedi stuff after Episode 6. Now, I'm not the first person to say this, but this really makes the original trilogy feel kind of broken. You thought Luke was the last Jedi? Nope, that was Ahsoka. I know in-universe she's no longer a Jedi, but Dave Filoni doesn't seem to. See? Episode's called The Jedi. Why didn't Obi-Wan try to get in contact with her back in episode 4? Probably because this is dumb fan fiction. Also, despite the fact that we hear her ghost in episode 9, Dave Filoni says that she's still alive after episode 9? Are you kidding me? So you're telling me that Ahsoka, the girl who was trained by Darth Vader, just chilled during the whole Galactic Civil War, and then during whatever war the sequels are, you didn't once try to stop Snoke, or the Emperor, or Kylo Ren? Don't act to me like you don't know who Kylo Ren is. You helped build the school that he lived at.
Weird vibes on this guy, I'm telling you.
I honestly believe that at this point, the Ahsoka show, that's hard to say, Ahsoka show. Try saying that 5 times fast. Ahsoka show, Ahsoka show. I honestly believe at the end of the Ahsoka show, it's gonna end with her becoming God, and then getting married to this X-Wing pilot. Even beyond the fact that putting her in the show is kinda weird, I kinda hate how she is used. Like, Rosario Dawson looks great, and I don't care about the length of her lekhoods. I just don't like the fact that all Ahsoka wants to do is murder people. Now, I'm not one to say that Jedi can't kill people, but I feel like Ahsoka is kind of the exception. The whole point of her is that she leaves the Jedi Order to find a way to elevate herself beyond their teachings. What I really like about the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars is that you can see her going out of her way to make sure no one gets killed. She doesn't kill a single person.
You're a good soldier, Rex. So is every one of those men down there. They may be willing to die, but I am not the one who is going to kill them.
The most savage thing she does is send Darth Maul on basically a suicide mission. And at the end of the arc, she gets punished for it. Not only is this good writing, this is good Ahsoka writing. And what's most funny about that, Dave Filoni was barely involved with these episodes. This isn't good Ahsoka writing. This is just an excuse for Dave Filoni to get someone to dress up as his waifu. Dang. I think I really just wanted to talk about Ahsoka for this section. I really don't have much to say about Boba Fett. If I did, I'd just be repeating myself. I think his inclusion in Season 2 was fun, but a little weird and sorta underused. And though the Book of Boba Fett was funny, not intentionally, and it had a few good Mando episodes, I think the direction they're taking him in really isn't a good one. But I acknowledge they didn't really have a choice. If they wanted to make an accurate Boba Fett, it would just feel like a copy of The Mandalorian. Bo Katan is in the show, and I really wish they had fleshed her out a bit more, and maybe they will in Season 3. Not only is she apparently the Queen of Mandalore, it is totally her fault that Mandalore got destroyed by the Empire. Kinda wish they would discuss this stuff more though, you know? Cause like, if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, she's just another Mandalorian. Like, you're kinda missing part of the show, and I don't think people should have to watch 7 seasons of a kid's show to understand what's going on in the Baby Yoda show. Okay, Luke Skywalker. Hot take. CGI face, I don't think it looks that bad. But his introduction is weird, right? Like, I don't know. I'm probably wrong here. This might be the hottest take in the whole video, but I think I would have rather had him jump out of the X-Wing, then do the face reveal, and then have him kill all the Dark Troopers with his hood off. Like, if you're gonna put him in the show, you might as well commit to it, right? Okay. I think we're done. All right, let's do the conclusion part. Let's wrap this up. My kids have to get home. Okay, this video is way longer than it needed to be, but I really wanted to share all of my thoughts on this show, because I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I have not a huge, but a decent amount of friends who simply can't get into this show, because despite having cool visuals and lasers, this show is still pretty boring. My co-host Connor doesn't watch this show. You feel like this would be right up his alley, but nope, can't get into it. It's too boring. And again, I feel like it really wouldn't take much to make this show a lot better. The Bad Batch is actually a good example. It's basically the exact same show, except it succeeds where Mando falls short. The characters all have big and distinguishable personalities, and yeah, those personalities can all be summed up as wacky cartoon characters, but like, it's a cartoon, so get over it. Omega is like Baby Yoda, except she actually has stuff to do. She feels like an actual kid, as opposed to like a Muppet, a toy that you're supposed to buy. The villains are actually interesting. The story has twists, you know, stuff you don't expect. Some episodes are entirely dedicated to world building, And yeah, it's not perfect. The art style is still pretty questionable. The cameos still feel a little out of place, or wasted. But overall, this show feels like the creators wanted to tell a story, as opposed to Mando, which kind of feels like a tech demo. And I don't know, man. I don't want anyone to walk away from this video thinking The Mandalorian sucks, because it doesn't. It's not that bad of a show. It's not even a bad Star Wars show. Would you compare it to freaking Falcon and the Winter Soldier? It's a masterpiece. But just because it's a masterpiece doesn't mean it's perfect. And I really hope Season 3 will be an improvement. It looks like it could be, so you know what? I'm gonna watch it. Actually, you know what? No. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm tired. Goodbye. Oh yeah, and make a Mandalorian video game. How hard is that?